Good.
All right, well, so not long before we were set to go on here, I came across this breaking news that the city of Louisville is agreeing to a $12 million settlement with Breonna Taylor's family. And then for people who can see the Twitter feed, there's a couple other things they're agreeing to do, more social workers to help with mental health problems, incentives for officers to live in the city. So rather than having your officer come from two towns over, they live where they work. And then commanding officers must approve search warrants. So we could get into a little bit of the details of this Breonna Taylor case to explain why maybe that point's important. But of course, the big headline news here is the $12 million paid to the family. So for people who don't remember, I'd say it's like at least 6 months ago now. Will, not long after the shooting of Duck and Lemp, the police kicked down the door of Breonna Taylor's home in the middle of the night. Her boyfriend understood this to be a break-in, and I believe is believed to have fired at police. Police blindly fired back into the dark building, including possibly through a window, murdering Brianna as she slept next to her boyfriend. Her boyfriend was shot in the leg. Police did the dirty tricks that police usually do and tried to bully the boyfriend into essentially accepting a plea deal to get him off for shooting the cop in exchange for admitting that Brianna was somehow involved in illicit activities that would have justified the police uh, you know search there. I guess a couple important things is this was one of the no knock raids, and that's kind of the mantle that Rand Paul has took up and actually introduced the Breonna Taylor Act in the Senate to federally ban no knock raids. I think for me though, the thing that struck me was the $12 million and how there's some people, it seems like especially the mayor of Louisville, who are kind of touting this as this is us doing the right thing. And it's the biggest con ever. This is a city who's taking $12 million from the taxpayer, not holding a single public official, not a cop, not a supervisor, not an officer, not the police chief, not the mayor. Nobody is being held responsible for this. And then they're going to take $12 million from the taxpayer and give it to Breonna Taylor's family. Now, I'm not saying the family isn't maybe owed money, but it's certainly not on every single citizen of Louisville to cough up 20 or so dollars for this. And then from the mayor's perspective, to take like kind of almost a victory lap on this, or in some way to pretend like he did anything by taking money from some people and giving it to a victim of his crime, is just, it shocked and disgusted me. And so I don't know. I guess this is kind of the the status quo that we usually deal with, right? Will, is that they do something wrong and then they claim victory because they're the government, and a lot of people just praise them, and that's how it goes. So I don't know, what details of this story do you want to fill in, and what did you think about the settlement?
Yeah, I mean, I think you did a pretty good job just covering like the factual basis of it. One other thing I had seen, and I think you actually did kind of hit on this, that the settlement does not explicitly acknowledge like wrongdoing by any particular officer. And so, like, I mean, I don't know what paying $12 million to the family is. I mean, you'd think that's sort of an acknowledgement that, hey, we screwed up here or something. But I don't think there was an explicit like, mea culpa in this settlement. So I thought that was interesting. And yeah, I mean, you hit on this point. I think this is a great point that I think often libertarians are the only ones to make. That indeed, when the government is paying out this $12 million settlement, who's paying that? Is that coming out of the officer's salaries? Like, no, that's coming out of the average person's salary, the average taxpayer. And so that's that. It's not that I'm not happy to see that the Breonna Taylor's family is getting some restitution for this, but who's paying it? Who's footing that bill? And it's certainly not the people who are responsible for the act.
Right. Well, the other thing it seems to me is that the reforms here are pretty minor. Although I understand that I believe the state of Kentucky already banned no knock grades in response, which is a good thing. But just having the chief sign off on the or the commanding officer sign off on the warrant is a pretty small step. It's not having officers double check their addresses and stuff like that. Or I think the most important thing to make sure police officers aren't kicking down the wrong doors is to charge officers who do. which is what should happen here. And this is, I think, just another way to try to deflect from the fact that the officers need to be held accountable, and that's ultimately what's going to I think end up curbing the police abuse at least a little bit. Is that, if you kick down the wrong door and shoot the wrong lady and then you spend the rest of your life in jail, I guarantee you nobody, else on that police force, they're going to remember that. And, they're going to double check their stuff when they're getting warrants, and they're going to, make sure they really consider, do we want to just go kicking down this person's door in the middle of the night? Or are there other ways that we could, attempt to apprehend them? Breonna Taylor, one of the things about her was this was not a lady who was actually, like, I guess, in the drug world. It seems like maybe she was at one time involved with somebody who was using, but she was like a paramedic or an EMT or something. Like, this was a lady who had like a job that, like, you could meet her at her job because she shows up there every day, right? And talk to her if you have any concerns or something like that. There's no reason, to be the Gestapo and kick down doors in the middle of the night with your guns and waving them around and shooting people. And this is exactly what happens when you go kicking down doors in the middle of the night, is people get scared and shoot back, because some
Yeah.
people, live in neighborhoods or lived in neighborhoods, or, people may have a little PTSD or some, history of trauma or something a little bit more sensitive to this kind of thing. Or hell, even people who live in a nice neighborhood, get scared because people kick down the door in the middle of the night. You expect the police to go like the cop shows where, you, if there's cause to kick down the doors, there's like 4 police helicopters outside circling around and saying, like, come out with your hands up, come out with your hands up. And that's not at all what you had here. It was just middle of the night, get down the door. I remember not that long ago, I saw a video of there's like a police officer that approached a house in the middle of the night with his hand behind his back, and, like, didn't say what he was doing there, right? So he's like got his hand behind his back, and I'm assuming the guy who comes to the door is thinking that this cop is like some guy trying to mug him or something. And I think the cop actually says police, but he was playing clothes. So, like, how is this guy gonna, know? Like, I feel
Yeah.
like if I was trying to rob somebody for, some money, I'm not above saying I'm the cops, right? Like, if I'm pointing a gun at somebody, I'm willing to say I'm the cops. And so, anyways, a shootout ensues, and this guy dies. And again, it just seems like, had you uniformed police officer shows up, knocks on the door, not hands in pockets or anything like that, then there's no reason for this, like, violent confrontation anyways. And so, and again, with this settlement and everything the city is doing, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot they're doing other than just ending the no-knock raids, which I'm guessing there's going to be some loopholes, and maybe cops just won't say it very loud or something, like, real quietly. um
Right.
yeah, so I think that's I think this is a pretty empty gesture from especially the government. And again, I'm not, like, upset that the family got some money. I mean, this is
Of
extremely
course.
tragic. And I guess in some way it probably will screw up the city budget a little bit. And from my understanding, a lot of times cities actually have insurance policies against this, and so it's likely an insurance company will pay out the $12 million, but the city's insurance rates will go up, and so it's going to end up costing every citizen either now or later.
Right.
Um,
Someone's got to pay for that at some
right.
point. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, anything else on this, Will, or anything else the crazy cops are doing on our streets, or should we talk about what our soldiers are doing on the streets of other countries?
Yeah. I suppose we can move on to the move abroad if you want.